DFL Assistant Senate Majority Leader Nick Frentz and Republican Assistant Senate Minority Leader Julia Coleman, thank you both for being here. Senator Frentz, let me start with you. There was so much that could have been done this session with Democrats in control of the House and the Senate and the governor's office, yet some major things didn't happen. The Equal Rights Amendment, sports betting, a bonding bill. Why?
Well, first of all, Tom, thank you for having me. Very good to be here. Nice to see you again, Senator Coleman. Most of the Minnesotans I've talked to since we adjourned are talking about what was accomplished. This two-year biennium was a historic set of accomplishments, and I think both Democrats and Republicans and the people of Minnesota can look at that and say this will be remembered 50 years from now. For the things that didn't get done, I think those conversations continue. Sometimes more debate was needed. Sometimes there weren't the votes in the language that it was meant to be, and I hope we move forward on those things. I know some people that worked very hard on sports betting and are hoping to have an additional conversation.
And Senator Coleman, before I get to you, let's listen to something else people might remember 50 years from now. Let's play a little bit of Sunday Night.
What motion are we on?
Clearly a chaotic end to the session on both the Senate and House floors. Why did it come to that?
Well, I think we experienced that a lack of planning on the majority's part, they believed led to an emergency on our part. And it felt like we were being told to stop thoroughly vetting bills, to end debate, to let them ram through their agenda. And it was one of the most heartbreaking moments I've had in the Senate. You know, I go door to door and I hear from moms and dads in my district that say, can't you guys just go there and get along? And that's what I do when I show up, is try to reach my hand out across the aisle. But it seemed like most of the negotiating was happening between moderate Democrats and the far left faction of their party, instead of Democrats and Republicans.
And Senator Frentz, the session started in February. Why not do some of these things earlier? Because the deadline near the end of session becomes a weapon of the minority. They know they can start running the clock out. Those filibusters would have been essentially meaningless if some of these debates happened in, let's say, early April.
Well, first of all, I think you make a good point. Some people are saying, what did take to the last minute? I think deadlines help. I think they've always been a part of the legislative world. I think the filibuster question is going to get some attention now. Minnesota is one of the states at the state level that doesn't really limit the filibustering, and we can now imagine a minority party, Republican or Democrat, essentially winding out the whole session starting in February. I don't think people want that. I do think that there's got to be conversations between the parties, and as someone who was part of the negotiations in the last few days, I think it's on all of us to do better, and I think we will.
And I don't want to put all of this on Democrats, because when Republicans have been in control, they have also waited till the last minute repeatedly. I've been there for 27 years watching this. Why is that? Why as an institution can the House and Senate not do work in a more orderly fashion?
I think that's a wonderful question, and I'm not sure why we always go till midnight or late at night until the last day. I would have liked to have seen time spent a little more wisely. We had an entire week where everything was taken off the agenda after the Nicole Mitchell scandal. We had an entire day wasted when the Uber Lyft bill was being debated. And so I would just like us to spread things out a little bit, particularly as someone with 3 little children that wants young parents like myself to be able to be a voice for the people of Minnesota in the legislature. That becomes almost impossible the last 2 weeks. I'm lucky that I have a supportive Coleman family backing me, but not everyone else is afforded the same opportunity.
Let's talk about Uber Lyft. It did take on, you could argue, kind of an outsized role. It impacts about 10,000 drivers. There's nearly 6 million Minnesotans, but this tended to dominate the last weekend of the special session, and some people say it blocked other legislation from happening.
Well, first of all, I think the result we got to was the right one for the people of Minnesota. Drivers got a pay raise. I think most people wanted to see that. And Uber and Lyft are staying. I know a lot of people that wanted to see that. The timing of it was later than we would have liked, but that's how it goes sometimes. Things that you think might be done earlier take longer, and things like preemption take a little more time.
Was it worth the 10 or 12 hours on Saturday where nothing could happen because of the negotiations on the Uber Lyft bill?
I think that we had all session to negotiate this, and then what we saw was one of their members withholding their vote and digging in their heels saying this has to be done or you're not going to have my support on anything. And again, they could have reached out to Republicans and said, okay, we aren't getting this far left vote here, where can we meet in the middle on a lot of these massive pieces of legislation? Now, I'm happy to see Uber and Lyft is staying, and I say well done on that, but I am not happy to see that we're going to see up to a 20% or more price hike on consumers.
Now, another thing that we've talked about that didn't happen, the Equal Rights Amendment. Senator Frentz, were there the votes in the Senate to pass that, or did you legitimately run out of time?
Well, keep in mind, we passed language on the Equal Rights Amendment last year. I think this year our feeling was that really can't be put into a larger omnibus bill. That really does have to debate on the Senate floor, and that was the main reason that it didn't move forward in the Senate.
Were there the votes, though, do you think?
Well, I guess I would say there's different languages and different timing. I've heard Democrats talk about 2024 versus 2026. The language has changed this year, and we'll have to put it out there for caucus to find out.
Was it the abortion language in that Equal Rights Amendment that was a non-starter for Republicans? Absent that, could it have passed?
Republicans voted for it, and it passed last year out of the Senate, and now it got added to have the abortion up till birth amendment into it. And I think it's just another example of where we'd love to just see clean, single-issue bills passed, and Republicans will come on board.
Give me one or two things you are proud of that maybe we haven't already talked about that did happen this session.
Well, I'm proud of the permitting bill, and Tom, you moderated the Minnesota Chamber of Commerce dinner where that was the #1 feature of Minnesota businesses, and as the chief author, glad to see it come together, had bipartisan support. Minnesotans expect us to make government more efficient and more responsive, and I think that was a big win. As you know, it has the DNR and Pollution Control Agency reporting, so in addition to clean energy permitting, more work to do, and hopefully it's a template for future success.
Anything from your side of the aisle that you're happy that did get done?
Absolutely. The best pieces of legislation we saw passed this year were when Republicans and Democrats worked together. The fix for the school resource officers is a great example, as well as the rural EMS funding. When we work together, we get awesome things done.
All right, you two might give the Senate a bad name by getting along here on the set, but thank you for a great discussion about what happened and what might happen in the future.